somebody on audio inside of a video recording while pointing at a bunch of people being arrested said that they were able to catch this group of people in their mystery machine U-Haul. All of them crammed in there. Like 31 people or something crazy. And pulling off a mask literally like right out of Scooby-Doo. It was the idiots all the time. Someone said informants in their chats. It's more likely than you think. No, they said that the reason they were able to catch him is an informant contacted them. Now, what does that mean from a police officer's perspective? You can ask channels run by police officers. What that means is someone ratted him out. That doesn't mean everybody in the van was an FBI agent. That doesn't mean everyone in the van is a paid informant. That doesn't mean that any of them or anyone associated with them did the informing. The police officer is a non-authoritative source of information concerning reality. I'm using that because that was in a court case. What that means is that if you're not aware of it, police officers a long time ago, some of you know this, were declared not to legally be required to tell you the truth about a damn thing. And also, if you're not aware of it, they're not legally compelled in many cases to actually do the job that you think they do. They're not required to protect you. They have no duty to do their duty. It doesn't matter if you like it. In effect, because of all the laws and all of the lawsuits and crap, basically, the legal system has acknowledged that demanding the police department do what you and I think they should do is not reasonable anymore. The world is too extreme, and or honestly, most of them just got the job because they wanted to help in their neighborhood and needed to be a cop to do it, but they'd rather just be a crossing guard or something. Now, who could have ratted out the Patriot Front group that was in the Ryder truck? Well, the police officer saying that, presumably a police officer, isn't necessarily an authoritative source of information not because he's lying, but because he's a nitwit. Police are told flat out, you do not know the law. You have to do your best guess at the law, because there's 100,000 laws that are technically enforceable in the United States. A police officer pulls you over for doing reckless driving, but he can't really remember what chapter and verse literally in the courts, in the legal system and the legal ruling system is, the ordinances. They just say, I'm arresting you because I perceive you as being a threat to others, and that's good enough. They don't have to know the law, because they're told, even though you're supposed to know law, you can't be a lawyer. They're actually told not to give legal advice at all. But they're also told you can lie to people and get away with it. So, on one hand, you have a specific group of people making a claim about this police officer, saying he's an authoritative source of information, and also saying cops lie all the time, don't listen to them, they're always lying. So when it's convenient, their word is gold. Next, they talked to the chief of police or whatever, who said, or released in a statement, or both, doesn't matter. A concerned citizen called them about a U-Haul full of masked men that looked like a little army. And that actually seems kind of wimpy, by the way. Now, let's point out a couple of basics here. No matter what your opinion of this, and whether or not you want to say this is a honeypot run by the feds, or that they're glowies because it's so obvious that they're FBI. Because if you don't perceive it, you're an idiot. So, of course, you have to agree with me, otherwise I'll insinuate you're stupid. There's a bullhorn with FBI on it. Yeah, it says abolish the FBI, so that's not good. People pointing that out but refusing to acknowledge the word above it, they're telling you that 2 plus 2 equals 5. Don't you dare contradict them. Again, they'll rat you out. The other thing is, well, it's obvious they're feds or glowies or shills, because if you don't agree with them, you're one of them. One of the bad guys. let's do the glowy thing if anybody's not aware of it. You glow in the dark. It's so obvious that you don't belong here. If you're not aware of where that comes from, it's kind of a triggering story. But FBI informants were set up to go into specifically collections of black people who were fighting for their rights at one time. That actually is a thing you might have heard of in history. And a legit thing, they would infiltrate the group to get honest answers at them. Are any of you involved in criminal activity? Actually find out by just observing them. Are they doing actual protesting, or are they planning on doing something violent? And then they would snitch on them to prevent the violence. Now, absolutely, that could have been a federal informant, but it isn't necessarily a federal agent. Then, and yes, this is something confirmable, the U.S. government, various forms and subsections, most of which disavowed that they were ever part of the government, went through and infiltrated and tried to cause criminal activity by having people who, in a couple of cases at least, were real federal agents who literally committed federal crimes and got a walk to try to give fake justification to shut down organized groups who were trying to have the right to vote while being black and that sort of thing. This is a bunch of racial tensions from a long time ago. That happened. That's not going to be really easily equated for your neo-Nazi group getting infiltrated, because that's a bit of a stretch, and honestly, fuck you for saying it, but let's go back to this. Are any of these people glowing in the dark? Okay, one of them with a pouty face, probably caused by fetal alcohol syndrome, does stick out like a sore thumb, but the rest of them are all doing exactly the same thing that this group has been known for, making right-wingers look like Nazis. Were they built that way, or is that just something that keeps naturally happening? Now, in my opinion, it's a natural offshoot of it, because the Republican Party and conservatives in general are not denigrating them. They're not doing enough to keep them out. I'm sorry. That's it. But who could have ratted these people out? After all, they were obviously so brilliant that they couldn't possibly be infiltrated. Well, here's another thing. If you haven't noticed it, most of the people, if you haven't noticed this, most of the people out there who are bombastically stupid are very out and proud about it. So I doubt that these idiots, these knuckleheads, kept their mouth shut. So what happened is someone in the neighborhood, like a neighbor or a friend or a relative, ratted them out, not some informant within the group, but someone who knew them, called them up and said, no, really, I know these people, and they're planning on doing something stupid. I'd rather they get arrested for, conspiracy to commit annoyance rather than actually being there with guns. Could you arrest them? And maybe they'll learn their lesson, because I've tried and I've failed. It's probably a relative, a friend, a neighbor, or just somebody in the neighborhood who said, you know what? Fuck these guys, they're assholes. I mean, never underestimate the power of being an asshole to get you ratted out on. Even if people agree with what you're trying to do, if you make yourself an asshole out of it, if you make everyone else look like an asshole, you're going to get ratted out, unless they really like looking like shit. And the next stage about this is, it could have been one of the members of the group that left recently that ratted him out, or it could have been, quote, informants in their chats. That could have literally been that they set up a Facebook group and didn't realize it could be easily infiltrated because they're not too smart, and let somebody in who observed what they were talking about and said, oh, okay, now that I have access to everything you guys have talked about, because there's no security here, it's a fucking Facebook page, I'm gonna call the police on you guys and just not tell you. So does this require that the FBI or some other meme about government agents be infiltrating them? No. Does it require, because a cop said the word informant, that it be true? No, the cop could have been bullshitting. Could it have been, quote unquote, a concerned citizen? That actually sounds about right, because that happens a lot. A lot of criminal organizations or groups trying to do something that's universally a bad idea for everybody will absolutely call the police on them. They give an anonymous tip and say, yeah, this group of people is headed there in this Ryder truck with this, bumper sticker on it. I break for revolution or whatever. Or just, maybe even the license plate number. and said, yeah, it's carrying a whole bunch of people, and they're going to show up at some public event at a open, a city park, and start trouble. Conspiracy to annoy the shit out of people, or conspiracy to be violent. You can decide which one it is. I have not seen a report yet that said that they had any firearms with them. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm only talking about they got ratted out versus it must be a government conspiracy. That's not a leap. That's just bullshit. Next, people using as evidence that, well, I can see it because it's obvious. If you don't see it, you're not part of my group. That is a very big... That's an example of somebody gaslighting. The Gateway Pundit doing that. Oh, it's totally obvious. No, it's not. Because a lot of people in various subcultures, including right-wing extremist subculture, if you want to call it that, they'll shift to the ultra-violence and wear funny derbies, and they'll distinguish themselves by wearing sort of a uniform. This happened a bunch of times. Every time it happens, someone says, oh, that obviously has to be something fake because they're wearing a uniform. Yeah, but they're doing it because that way they can distinguish themselves from a group. Every subculture does that. Period. And every group that wants to be taken seriously as a militia or an organized group has, as of late, for the last almost 10 years, adopted an almost uniform type of arrangement. So, my conclusion about this. Is this an example of the feds having Antifa show up impersonating conservatives? No, that's dumb. Is this an example of it being obvious? No, it's not obvious because everybody's been mixing this up a lot. I mean, we see cartoon character level crazy going on a daily basis, and that's really just the new normal, which is kind of sad. What probably happened? I'm assuming a neighbor saw them getting ready to do this shit, putting on funny outfits and getting ready to do something like this and trying to look all, tactical or, in this case, really stupid looking, and decided, okay, I've had enough. They're lowering my property values. I'm going to call the cops on them. Or a relative or friend did it. Now I'm going to get to the last part of this. Why would conservatives immediately disavow a group of people that makes them look like knuckleheads? Because they make them look like knuckleheads. Even the QAnon shaman became a shame. He put on that stupid hat, went in there, and acted like he was in a fantasy universe where essentially attacking a federal building isn't going to have consequences. And then as soon as he experienced those consequences, he turned state's evidence and tried not to go to prison. Didn't work. The guy who put his feet up on Pelosi's desk. No, you're guilty. He made sure of this. I didn't know there'd be consequences. It doesn't matter. You're gonna get screwed in some way, unless you rat out your friends. Hell, maybe some of those people gave up their account logins and passwords, and then cops are sitting there impersonating them for 6 months or however long it takes to be able to find this evidence. Actually, that has happened. Why? Because that's legit something you can do. I will give you my passwords if you don't throw me in prison. Okay. You can't be visible on the internet for the next 6 months while we do the operation, and then they just use the account and infiltrate a bunch of groups because they can. Next, why do conservatives do this? For the same reasons that the Nazis did it. When anybody made them embarrassed, they would disavow them. Chinese government, the Russians, the Bolsheviks, whatever. Any group of people that's made to look bad will throw that person under the bus. This happened over and over and over again. Every time Donald Trump picked his extremely reliable, borderline Jesus geniuses to be underneath him, every time they fucked up, he just disavowed them, said they were always an idiot. You see it enough. I mean, if anybody's trying to ignore it, I don't know why. So, was this legit? Something happened? Most likely, but I don't know for a fact. Was this obviously not really true? No. Was this obviously faked and staged? No. Is this about par for course for people who are extremists who live in a universe that's completely fantasy-based? Yeah. That's probably the main reason it looks so surreal and stupid and crazy, because they are stupid and crazy. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with that. Disavow.